Hey, peace and blessings to you. My name is Jerry B. I am the entree musician, and so are you. And you know what? So is that incredible brother who's sitting to the left of your screen. But before I even introduce him, I'm gonna have to tell you how smart I am. I'm a brilliant guy. I'm incredibly intelligent. And here's why. I'm gonna show you something. These, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, are my drumsticks, okay? And I'm gonna tell you how smart I am. When this brother walks into the room, I lay my drumsticks down and I pick up my notebook, okay? That's how smart I am, okay? I'm gonna tell you something else about my brilliance. Also, I have learned whenever my band has been in a jazz fest, okay? Anywhere in Ohio, Northeast Ohio, what have you, and I understand that this brother is on the gig, I usually talk to the promoter about me going first, okay? So I can get my paradiddles out of the way, my little tips, and he can come on and show us all what's really happening with drumming. This brother's name is Elijah Gilmore, 2020 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame inductee, has toured with Gladys Knight, has toured with Najee and Gerald, Veasly, and we're going to do some name droppings because the names go on and on and on. But also, and most recently, the incredible movie Judas and the Black Messiah, that wonderful drumming that kept those scenes interlocked and dramatic. Elijah Gilmore. This is the brother right here, Cleveland, Ohio, right down the street from where I am, and he is doing it big time. My brother and friend, peace and blessings to you, man. Welcome to the Entree Musicians. How you doing, man?
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here, and thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
That was a great introduction, by the way.
Well, I'm a smart guy.
You are a smart guy.
I love your drumming, man. I love your artistry. I love the work that you're doing. I love the fact that you are not only doing it for yourself, achieving and accomplishing, but you are also mentoring others. So we want to talk about your foundation. We want to talk about your journey. Thank you, man, for just being the brother who you are. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Now, with all of your accomplishments and accolades, and I say that humbly, I'm not trying to, flatter you, but with everything that you've been able to achieve by God's grace and your hard work, how do you, Elijah, define success?
To me, I define success on our ability to impact other people's lives. So, I believe, like Martin Luther King said, we all can be great because we all can serve. We all can give back and help somebody in some type of way. And that's how I define greatness. If you made a lot of money, well, what are you doing with that money? How are you helping better our community, or you just spending it all on yourselves?
Very cool. Very cool. Now, how did your journey begin, man? How'd your musical journey begin?
I started off like most African-American youth in church, hearing the musicians play.
Right.
And I would try to mimic the drummer and rip off the handle, act like I'm playing drums. Because the drums always stood out to me.
Mm-hmm. I know you play mallets, but you play any other instruments as well?
Yes, I play vibraphone, I play congas. Mm-hmm. I just like percussion. I mean, I like music in general, and I like a lot of different instruments, but percussion has always stood out to me. The beat sings to me in the song the most.
Understood. Yeah. Understood. So what was your first professional gig? Was it, with your own band and you starting out, or was it with you touring or working with someone else? What was that experience?
Well, I started touring with Joe McBride. I toured with Joe McBride for a good decade.
Yeah.
I also did some independent touring with Too Skinny, which was an independent rock group.
Yeah.
I've got a chance to tour with Half Mile Home, who was a stellar gospel group. And so Gladys Knight is one of the more recent tours that I'm doing, I've worked with a lot of different people.
Yeah.
From Outkast to Gerald Levert. But I've been touring now with Gladys Knight since COVID, maybe, going on about 4 years. But if we take out COVID, then, about 2.5 years.
Understood.
So we just had a date this weekend. We just had a date in Michigan at a casino, a private show for a bunch of high rollers. As you know, COVID, they have limited spacing. Yeah.
So what's it like working with an icon like Her Majesty Gladys Knight?
It's a beautiful thing. She's a sweetheart. That's what I love about her. She's not a diva. She's a sweetheart. She's down to earth. And you don't always see that with people who are at that level of success. Sometimes they can have the diva demeanor and kind of maybe even be challenging to work with, but she's very easy to work with.
Yeah.
Just feel like she's grandma. Because Gladys 75.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was gonna say some young sisters have the diva attitude, and they have only been on the block for like 4 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's been through decades.
Yeah, I've heard of some artists saying that you can't look them in the eye, and you got to call them Miss this and that. I done heard some stories.
Yeah.
It's like, wow.
And she's not like that at all.
She's not. This is crazy when you meet some of the most phenomenal musicians that you would think would be like that. Such as I met Victor Wooten one time, and we all know he's like, yeah, he's one of the coolest, and he's a beast, but he's just so down to earth. Yeah.
I think a lot of that too is the way they were raised, because the Wooten brothers were a tight knit group, family life, and just so they are very, very down to earth. All the Wooten brothers are right on.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. But let me ask you this, Brother Elijah, what is the most important lesson then with all of these artists that you've worked with that you feel that you've learned as a result of being around them? What is the most important lesson you've learned?
One of the most important lessons I've learned has been to be yourself. And a lot of times when you jump into this music business, you want to sound like somebody else or like other people. And we can be inspired by other people. We can grab from other people and make it your own and put your spin on it. But, I think the reason we do this is because we want everybody to accept or like us. And that's another thing that I learned, that you cannot get everybody to like you.
That's right.
It's impossible.
That's
Beyonce is like the modern day Michael Jackson, and there's still people who don't like Beyonce. And she's like doing her thing out here. Yeah,
absolutely.
So just if we can come into acceptance that everybody won't accept or appreciate us, I think that's the first step in your freedom.
Sure.
Because you can stress yourself out. I hope everybody likes me. And that means you have to try to appeal to different audiences, and you just may not be able to pull that off. Yeah, so I think it's good that you first make yourself happy.
Yeah.
I think that's important, that you make yourself happy first, and then you try to find an audience that appreciates what you do.
Absolutely. That was, we've just done an episode on that about 2 weeks ago on the Entre Musician Minute. Is just absolutely be yourself, because one of the things was I was reading a ton of articles recently on how to get that Billie Eilish sound, or how to get your guitar to sound like, and it's just like, just do you. You know what I mean? Just stop it. Who are you? And Robert Glasper talked about the time where, Miles Davis was saying, hey, why is everybody trying to cop my chops? I mean, what do you have? Who are you? What is your identity? So when we discover that, that's why, like a Sean Jones, I know you've played with Sean Jones. He has his own tone. You can understand that he has listened to the masters and to the greats and taken some influences, even with your own. I'll tell you what, Elijah Gilmore's own sound, I can understand where you may have pulled this chop from somebody, because I listen to a lot of music. I'm a student of music. But when you do something like, and I'm going to turn a corner here, but you know, the Christmas, the little drummer boy, when you do something like that and you go, wait a minute. So why don't you tell us about that approach?
You know what? The Drumma Boy thing was, it's like every time I've heard Drumma Boy, I just was like, what does this have to do with drums? Like what, like I hear some little percussion in there, but
it's the backdrop.
Yeah. It's like, it's not the feature, it's not the focus. And that's more of a Western thing. We don't really, in the West, we don't view the drums the same way. So I'll give you an example. In Africa, the drums can be used for healing.
Yeah.
The drums are used for healing in Africa, India, Brazil, the Japanese temples. Seeing that in the West, we think drums, we're about to party, or we're about to go to war or something. You know, we don't think of it as a therapeutic instrument. And that's just one of the differences in the West of how we view drums. But in general, I just noticed that drums are not as respected in the West. You know, they say any monkey can do that, you know.
It's an undercurrent.
Yeah, there you go. And a lot of even the white professors, we would say, oh, they lack rhythm. And it's not really a white or black thing. It's just rhythm and drums is just not really as embraced as much in the West.
Exactly.
So it is what it is. But I said, you know what? Let me put my spin on Drumma Boy. So I said Drumma Boy. You know,
right.
Check it to the hood real quick.
Right.
And let me show you how we could spin this song.
Absolutely. Well, you spun it. You spun it, and you twisted it, and you turned it, and you squeezed it. That is without fail, and I mean this. You know, I'll put a link to this version in the show notes, but you know, that is by far the best version, and there are hundreds of versions of just having an original thought and a unique perspective on how that song was supposed to flow. And everybody, all the musicians, everybody you got on that groove did an outstanding job. But
yeah, they did. I want to give a shout out to the Funkyard X band.
Absolutely.
They definitely helped me to bring that vision to life.
Yeah, just did wonderful. And I'm going to ask you a question about your band, the band of Eli, the Tribe of Eli. But let me ask you, because I just asked concerning the most important lesson that you've learned. Now, let me just flip that and ask, is that the same lesson that you teach, or what is the most important lesson that you teach others or teach younger musicians coming up?
One of the most important lessons I teach my younger musicians is to listen. And we think we know how to listen, but we don't.
Gotcha.
And I remember going to counseling with my girlfriend at one point, because she would say I was saying things I wasn't saying to her, and she would say I wasn't hearing her correctly. So I said, you know what? Maybe it's me. Let's go to counseling and see what they say. So we get to counseling, and they had an exercise called the reflection game. One person holds the microphone, which was like a brusher cone, and one person held the mirror. And your job was to reflect in the mirror what you thought you heard that person saying. And until you could reflect it correctly, you couldn't hold the mic.
Interesting.
They said, ladies first. Tell Elijah how you feel. She goes into her thing, and just to get to the point, she says her piece. I said, is this what you said? And then she says, that's not what I said. And I just had this big cheesy smile on my face. I looked at the counselors. I said, did y'all hear what she said? And he said, Mr. Gilmore, it doesn't go like that. I said, okay, cool. But did y'all hear what she said? I said, Mr. Gilmore, doesn't matter what she said. She could speak differently than you. She may not know how to say it. Your job is to figure out what she's saying. I said, oh, wow. So they said, ask her to repeat it again. I said, repeat it again, please. blah, blah, blah. I said, is it A plus B? She says, you're almost there. And at this point, I'm like slapping my head. And they said, you cannot speak until you figure out what she's saying. I said, ask her to repeat it again. She repeats it. I said, is it an A plus B plus C? She said, yeah, that's it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's what you're trying to say. I think that's what we're saying because we were friendly counselors. They said, Mr. Gilmore, you cannot tell her what you think she was trying to say. You have to accept what she said to you for game face value. And if you don't trust her, you need to get out the relationship. Wow. So that really taught me a deeper way of listening. Mm-hmm. Because how many times have you said to somebody, that ain't what you said?
Right.
You just said it to me. I just heard you say out your mouth this.
That's right.
You know, and so, you know, that has saved a lot of relationships for me just learning that. And we didn't even stay in the sessions too long because we just didn't finish.
Yeah.
But that little bit of information right there was like a game changer.
Yeah.
You know, so I said, okay, you know what? What if we were learning emotional intelligence and how to communicate, conflict resolution, how to coping skills, cultural diversity? What if we were learning that from elementary to college, like we learn math and science?
Correct.
From elementary to college.
Correct.
This world would be a better place because our issues are not math and science. Our issues are us coping and relating with each other, you know, understanding each other. I said, but okay, I can understand in early racist America why we cannot teach, you know, cultural diversity, why we can't teach, you know, how to respect people who are different than you, because that's not this America. Mm-hmm. You know, now we're becoming that America, but I can understand why that couldn't be taught early on. So this has nothing to do with religion. Mm-hmm. This is just loving your neighbor as yourself.
That's right.
So I said, you know, until that law can be passed where that's more of a priority, I'll just start a program that teaches these skills that could better our world. And then I apply drum therapy in it as well. Yeah. And we know that music therapy is really great for the development of the brain as well as it's therapeutic and allows the students I work with to not only be able to express themselves, but feel connected to the whole group as they're playing percussion patterns in a drum circle.
Yeah, man, that's excellent. And learning to listen, everything that you said about that counseling session really does work in a band dynamic. I mean, you know, I can remember when Cliff Barnes, I mean, everybody knows, at least around this area, Cliff, when he was a member of our band Sound Doctrine. And the one thing is that, you know, Cliff, you know, he's a genius, so he can play in and out of time. And one of our conversations, a couple of our conversations, in fact, was like, you know, we have to know when to break, even if the meter is 4/4 or 6/4 or wherever we are, we have to know when one of us is just going out of time, and you're going to have to improv with that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So it is emotional intelligence of being so tuned in, not on what you're doing on your instrument, but listening and seeing, because if that brother or sister has the solo and they're up on Front Street, then we need to be in the back seat at that point. And we need to be learning how to, you know, be a passenger, how to listen and how to engage with them, because that's what's going to make the song tighter. If you're just going to stay locked at 4 and they're making a left turn, it's all going to fall apart. We're going to crash. So
absolutely.
What you said was just, you know, it was gold. You know, it's not what you thought she said. It's what she said.
Yeah. I'm like, did you say that? Well, you gotta believe this is what she means. And having faith, and that's hard for us sometimes when we've, you know, been through a lot of different abusive situations.
Yeah,
we sort of can put everybody in the same category and say all white people are racist.
Sure,
and that's just not true.
That's not true.
White people that were helping African Americans on the Underground Railroad.
That's absolutely
when slavery was in existence. That's so exactly, you know, it's just, you know,
You can't make blanket statements, blanket and put people, I don't care who they are. You can't just put them in a box. Every person is different.
Every person's different. Yeah.
That's right. That's
and I like what
right.
you said about how it applies to music. The best musicians I've ever worked with, they have huge ears, and they hear what you're doing, and they know what to do or not to do based on what you're doing, and it's a whole different chemistry. And it's like it's the same song, but it feels different because you got different musicians around you, and you get a different chemistry.
That's right.
Get a different vibe.
And I'm sure you've been in this position. I mean, I've been placed in positions where there were musicians who were like light years ahead of me, and in the same band, musicians who were, light years away from me, in the sense that I brought more musical acumen than they did. So you got this spectrum of these extremes. And what I found is that the most humble musicians with the big ears, who were light years ahead, they knew how to blend it in, that what they were doing made the band sound tight, and they didn't just go off on a tangent because they had 100,000 chops.
You're absolutely right.
You know what I mean?
The best musicians are, leaders. Like in LeBron James, they can make everybody else great from LeBron playing with that group of guys, and now everybody else is playing on a whole nother level, because he's thinking about how can I position everybody else so our team can make it to the finals.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. So tell me two things. There's two things. That first of all, let's dig into your foundation and the drum circle that you formed. When did that form, and how did you get it started, and what is your vision for the future of it?
So I study world drumming. So I don't just study drum kit. I listen to Indian drumming and Japanese drumming and, African drumming. I just love it all. So, I started noticing again that the drums was being used for healing. It wasn't just, okay, we're about to party or we're about to go into war. Give us some drums. Yeah. It was like, when we think drums, we think drum battle,
Correct.
Fireworks, machine gun, exactly. But like hearing drummers play from a more healing, therapeutic standpoint, I'm like, that's so cool, and then I was able to participate in a few drum circles, and I just started jumping into the science of music and the science of drumming, and the more deeper I got into it, I started realizing that, drumming is used in hospitals when people are trying to rehabilitate themselves. They play certain rhythms, or even if somebody needs to be healed, like I said, in other countries, they might just play a healing rhythm on the drums. We don't normally think of drums like that in the West. We think aggressive, So when I started getting into that more, it allowed me to be able to view drumming from a wider perspective. And then I started saying, okay, how can I implement what I've learned? And as we said, if you make a lot of money, what are you doing with that money to better the world? Yeah. What am I doing with this gift of music? I'm a drummer. How can I better the world with what I do? Yeah. And the drums just happen to be one of those instruments similar to singing or dancing that most people can do innately. Even if they're not a master dancer or master singer, everybody can sing along. Everybody can beat or clap along, and pat their feet. Right. And so that's what makes the drums beautiful, is the ability to bring everybody together, and they don't have to be master musicians.
Right.
So I started saying, one of my goals on the inside, because my parents are leaders of our community, Dr. Thomas Gilmore and Dianthea Gilmore. They coming up, I watched them give back to our community. So that's sort of in me, to teach and give back. And I just said, how can I do it from a music standpoint?
That's excellent.
So I said, okay, one way I can do this through my music, my actual music itself. And if you check out my CD, Return is In, I have titles like Yang Meets Yin and Nirvana Drums and, Home Finally. These are all like songs that have a peaceful feel to it, so to speak. Outside of the music, just the titles themselves. Sure. And you're like, okay, cool. And I want to do a little more of that on the next album, even more so. I touched on it a little bit, but the whole album, I just wanted to put the message of peace through my music. So there's a music piece of it, but then there's actually performing for others. And then putting the message of love. When I speak to the audience, I say, hey, we all are from the same human family. Let's love on each other.
That's right.
And then there's an actual involving the community, through the drum circles, where the community can actually participate. So those are usually the three mediums where I'm using music to try to put positive energy into the world.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. And, it's conversations like this that caused me to want to go down rabbit trails, because you said so much depth into that I kind of want to unpack that a little bit. And then we'll talk about the Tribe of Eli. But here's the thing. And, I guess because I'm an old man, I won't talk about you, but, when you've been around for decades. You look
younger than me.
Well, close. but
you look good, man.
Well, I praise God for that. But, here's the thing. When you've been around for decades and you've heard different trends of music come and go, what you said and what I really dig and appreciate and agree with respect to being a drummer, that I know that drumming heals. I know, I haven't studied as in depth as you have with Indian and the cultures that utilize drumming in the rehabilitation of a person. But we did an extensive series on the Entre Musician about music being a spirit. And I can remember back in the early 90s in, teaching younger musicians and talking to them about the way the drums were being used to really open up that spiritual gate in you and pour in death. And that was, the introduction of the hip hop that became murder and, violent. And, many people were going, oh, Jerry, you just tripping. I'm going, wait a minute. They're utilizing the drum to open up that gate. They're slowing down the tempo to where it matches your heartbeat, your rhythm. So, music used to be a little bit faster in the 70s and 80s. They slowed it down. And now that your spiritual gate is open, now they can pour that murder in. Now, this is the first time that we heard about our beautiful women being called bitches and hoes, and how you're going to put somebody's head out. And it was just like natural. And they did say, because I want to get your reaction or response to this. And they said, nah, it's just music. It's just a song. But we saw where that song took on the form of a young man actually acting out the lyrics of that song because his gate was already open. Yeah. I mean, what do you have to say? Am I way off here? I mean, it happened. This is the 90s. We're in 2021, but what do you think about that?
So there's two sides to it.
Okay.
Like, in church, back in the early church days, you did not use minor chords. You didn't play anything with a swing shuffle or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because that had a blues sound to it.
Yeah.
And that was considered worldly or secular.
Yeah.
And we know Thomas Dorsey introduced blues to the gospel world.
Yeah.
And now today we consider that traditional gospel.
Right. Interesting,
and
now,
the newer music, we're like, nah, that's too far. But at one point, that was too far.
That's exactly right.
So that's one thing. Music, I don't know if the actual music itself, like melody, harmony, rhythm, beats, I don't know if that itself we can say, oh, that's evil. But I know that we can put lyrics to something that can now take something that could have been good, and now it has a negative
connotation.
Now it's not doing good. It's because you took something that I naturally would say, "Ooh, that beat feel good," and now you put a negative message in it that's gonna bring me down.
Now, it's really interesting that you say that, because during this series that we did, we were talking to people like Philip K. Jones, right? We're talking to Alton Merrill and others about, the chords and the dissonance. We talked to Gary Hines from the Sounds of Blackness, and just how those chords were being used, those minors and whatnot. And you're absolutely right when you say that. And the point was, okay, so is there a dimension then that you can open up something in a person's spirit? Absolutely. From Philip K. Jones, it's like, well, absolutely. There's certain chords that you're going to use when the man of God or woman of God is ministering. That's just going to boom. That word is just going to get.
I think the key thing that with people, sometimes you got to put it in context.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I do agree with that.
So let me see something. I'm see if I can turn my keyboard on real quick.
Sure. But I think it's a real interesting conversation because of the fact that, and again, we went down this rabbit hole. I'm going to blame you for it, because you had used that notion of those drums really bringing healing to the person's spirit. And that was the way, in the East, it's still, that instrument is still being used. And so, conversely, then, can that instrument be used for other purposes that are evil? That's the context, you know what I mean? We could take it and rip it to shreds, which are not gonna, it's not our point, but just based on the healing virtue and the wonderful album that you put together, having your drumming and your music, the purpose and the intent is peace.
Yeah. So sometimes a picture is better than 1,000 words.
That's right.
So if I do this, can you hear that?
I can hear it, yeah.
It sounds like it's off.
Right.
But if I put the other notes with it,
that dissonance.
Right. So now it can work. Mm-hmm. Now, so the context is everything. You can't just necessarily say is wrong or is evil, because there is no wrong. As Miles Davis said, there is no wrong. No, it's just in context of where it's placed, where you can say that works or doesn't work for the, the particular piece we're working on. Mm-hmm. So I think that, you put it in the right place, then people might say, oh, now it works. Now it's like, oh, sweet. Right. But, it's just all context. It's all context, so I don't think that, again, there's any evil beats or evil chords or evil melody. I think lyrics or the artist contaminates the music and makes that music a positive force of energy or a negative force of energy.
That's excellent. Thank you for your perspective on that. I think that's a deep conversation. And again, for those of you, you can go back into the archives and you can see our conversations with Philip K. Jones. Wonderful gentleman.
That's my guy.
Yeah. Alton Merrill and Gary Hines, Marlon Saunders. I mean, we talked to a lot of people about and we got a lot of great conversation on that. So thanks for adding to that. But it's because you used healing and peace that I was like, okay, let's try to get this perspective. But
of course, one little thing to throw in there. Of course, if you want to get energy to dance or drive fast or go to war, you're going to have something with more of an upbeat.
Sure.
If you're trying to relax somebody, maybe you're going to slow the tempo down.
Sure.
And certain instruments have the ability to, well, you can play any instrument, but certain instruments, let's say certain instruments we look to do certain things, even though most instruments can do everything. Most instruments can be played from a healing standpoint or can make you feel happy. It's just figuring out how you're going to do it. You know, like if I get on the piano and start playing a Latin feel, you might start wanting to dance even though there's no drums, because it's the rhythm that you put on it that's like, oh snap, you know.
That's correct.
So I don't think it's a music thing. I don't think like a genre. I don't think it's a genre thing. I don't think it's an instrument thing. I think that it's just a music thing. Like, you know, knowing what's going to relax a person, what's going to pep up a person's, you know.
And all of that has to do with being a good musician, to know the language of what you're trying to convey and to be able to express it appropriately. It's just... So
if you're trying to play behind the pastor and you playing the wrong chords, now that just threw the mood off. Like, it was like, why did you go there? You know,
exactly.
but then again, at one point, traditional gospel, as we know it, was considered evil. So now what might be the go-to, at one point, that was not the go-to. You know, you don't do that. Don't go to no minor chords. So even some of the things that we say shouldn't go that way, over time, it may become the standard.
Very good. Very, very good. So let's do this. Let's talk about, let's give some shout outs, man, to Cleveland musicians, man, because you got to show a lot of love to Cleveland. Like I said, it's right down the street. So yell out some names, man. I'm going to start with Lynn Adams.
Lim Adams, yes.
You know what I mean?
Lim Adams, Uncle Lim.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Lim.
Hub's Groove, is doing it. Granger. And, of course, there's Rob White on bass.
Rob White.
You know.
Big bro.
So go ahead and throw out some, and then we'll talk about the Tribe of Eli.
Okay, I got to give a shout out to Stacy Richardson. Meeting May Know of Sarah's Girl.
Yeah.
Let's see. Tanisha Salary. Let's give a shout out to her. One of my good friends. Let's see who else I can give a shout out to. And I'm giving shout out to women deliberately, because in 2021, that's still an issue. And that's sad.
Word up.
Let's give a shout out to Nikki Charisse, my girl that plays bass. Let's give a shout out to Serena Magnum. That's my girl. Let's give a shout out. Let's give a shout out to Lucretia Bolton and Lil TT. You know, Monica, drummer girl. I mean, I could go forever. I mean, we got some talent coming out of the Cleveland area. Yeah. And I could do this all day. We wouldn't finish the interview. We got some talent.
Well, we definitely wanted to give, because Cleveland has really, like you said, man, really on every level, on every spectrum. Of course, OJ's, Levert, kicked it off. But there's so many unsung heroes in the Cleveland community.
Absolutely.
So we just wanted to give that up. But now you picked a dynamic band for Tribe of Eli. Would you talk them up a little bit?
Okay, so I sort of had to break down this story. So there used to be an open mic called I Am 216 that featured Cleveland singers, poets, rappers, and the house band. They said, what we're going to call the house band. And since I was the leader of the house band, they called it the Tribe of Eli. That's how that name originated.
Got it.
And then, my stage name as an artist is Elijah G. But I said, okay, when I'm doing, functions around the city, or if I gotta call the band something, which I switch out musicians from show to show. I said the Tribe of Eli. And then I started connecting it to my philosophy that we can one day achieve world peace. And then I just say anybody that follows me is part of the Tribe of Eli community. And then I wound up starting the Tribe of Eli mentoring program. And I had the Tribe of Eli School of Music. So I interchange that word a lot for different things, but there's not one group of musicians that I work with. I normally have 3 of everybody.
Gotcha.
So if I have a show,
that's right.
One of my keyboard players, he's busy or it's already booked, have 2 other keyboard players that know my show.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's not necessarily a band, it's really Elijah G in concert, featuring the Tribe of Eli band, like Art Blakely and the Jazz Messengers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. But the album is good, man. And like I said, I'm gonna link to it in the show notes. And definitely want all who are watching or either listening to this podcast to check out Elijah G, to check out the album, to check out the music, to check out the drum circle, and go to his website and find out what's happening. Now, let me ask you this final question, and I ask it of all of my guests, and that is, when we scheduled to sit down and have this conversation, you thought perhaps there was one question that I was going to ask you, but I haven't asked that question. And you really want the people to know what that is. What is the answer to that unasked question?
I really didn't. I really was just open to flow and see where you go with things and just flow with you. But if there was one thing I want to share with people watching today, we have to let go of fear to move into love,
Dude, hey, listen, are you listening to our series? Because we just started the series on abolishing fear. I mean,
really?
Absolutely.
I love it.
We're 2 episodes in. The first one is Don't Be Afraid to Say Yes or No. The second one is Exposing Fear for What It Is. And so I'm going to let you.
I got to go back and check out the last.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's some ways that not only just as entree musicians, but as people, and I'm gonna let you answer the question because I asked it for you, but there's so many ways that we as people allow fear to dominate who we are. And we're in a prison. We can't be ourselves. It's a paralysis. So anyway, I'm very passionate about that because we are in the middle of that series right now on the Entree Musician. So it's interesting that you brought that up. Please continue.
Yeah, we're either operating in fear or we're operating in love.
They can't coexist.
They can't coexist, And the minute you can not operate in fear or get off that fear plantation,
that's right.
There's a freeness that comes with, not allowing that to consume your space and your mind.
Dude.
And I think there's some tools that we can use. And one of those is when I view myself and others, it's kind of hard for me to be in competition with something I feel I'm a part of. It's hard for me to step on a flower or catch it on fire when I'm like, hey, I need this flower. This flower gives me oxygen, I give it carbon dioxide.
That's right.
So when I can see how we all connect with each other.
That's right.
But when fear is involved, it's like I'm in competition with this individual when there's nothing that individual can do that will add or take value away from me.
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Like just do what you do, I do what I do.
That's right.
And to be able to appreciate each other. Green tea is green tea, cinnamon, apple tea is cinnamon apple, and blueberry is blueberry. To be able to appreciate our differences instead of saying, let's battle. And I hate that when they say with drummers, let's battle. Let's play together.
Right.
Why we have to battle each other? Let's just let's drum together, like they do in Africa and Brazil. Let's just make some patterns together and make music. It's got to be a battle. That's that whole philosophy and way of thinking is just, I don't like it. I think that that's one thing. And I just think we have to really put more attention on this right here.
Yes, sir.
We need to realize that the way that we think can determine how far we go in life or how little we travel, you know, because if we believe that we can. And if we believe that we can't, you know, either way, you're right. Whatever you believe, that's what it is.
Okay.
So,
all right, you need to stop it because that's another Entre Musician lesson on the Entre Musician Minute. Whatever you tell yourself, you're right. You need to. You know what? You're going to be a guest host on the Entre Musician. That's. You just got another position, man.
Yeah.
You got to come on and do this juice right here.
Yeah.
This is how we live.
This is it. It's crazy how, as you said earlier, how the different worlds have similar principles to them.
Yeah.
You know, and so I just encourage everybody to learn from everybody, rap from everybody. You can be inspired and you can use from everybody.
Man.
But finding your voice and what that is and being comfortable in it and saying, am I happy with how I'm saying this? And don't worry too much about what another person's doing. Because look, as much as they can't stop you, you can't stop them either.
That's right.
So what's the point of putting so much energy into what they doing and what they not doing? You know what? Let me celebrate. That's I love what you're doing, brother. Keep up the good work. And let me do what it is my purpose is. And your purpose might be a professor at a university,
right? Or
maybe being a producer, making beats for somebody, or it could be a jazz artist, or you can be a in-demand session musician that's hired for tours and studio sessions. I mean, there's 101 things you can do in music, and you just find your lane and just get rid of the fear. The fear is all it is, like you said, it immobilizes you and it does not allow you to be happy or be at peace.
That's right.
And a part of it, we said earlier, not needing to be accepted or liked by everyone. That's a trap in itself. So not needing everybody to approve or put their stamp on it and say, yeah, do that, because everybody's not. Everybody's not. So just doing your thing, making sure this is what I want to do first of all.
Correct.
How they say, I did it my way.
Right.
You know, it's how do you want to do it first? And then find your audience, your crowd.
That's right.
That can benefit from what you do and live your life. And we have a short life. I mean, that's just hell, just trying to make everybody happy for your entire life. I mean, correct.
It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen. So, I think when we can love ourselves, which might take some time because we all will say what we don't like about ourselves. But I think too, mindfulness, being grateful for the things we have and not necessarily always saying, okay, I don't have this, I don't have. But what do you have? If you took a paper and write down everything that you can be grateful for, it's kind of hard to complain or, be in a negative space when you're in the mindful, thankful, grateful space. So I think that's important too, in us being our best selves.
I'm grateful.
I'm grateful. I love it. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
So
I'm grateful.
You really are, Elijah. You're hitting all the markers of what we talk about here at the Entre Musician. Mindfulness, gratefulness, no fear, being who you are. What is the purpose that you're on the planet? So that's the only life you can live is out your purpose. So you're hitting all the markers. So yeah, I'm grateful that I asked you that question, that unasked question, because you took it and you ran with it, man.
And it was so layered. I was like, what to say first? Because there's so much to even a person who has an inferior complex.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that has a superior complex.
Sure. Somebody
who thinks that they're greater than other people.
Right.
In psychology, they say that they really have an inferiority complex. That's where the superiority complex comes from. So anybody that thinks they're better than somebody, they're really struggling on the inside with themselves, that you got to look down on anybody.
That's right. They have a poverty mindset because they think that there's only so much and they got it. They're superior. And no, it's an abundance. There's enough out here for everybody.
There you go. And a real king is a servant. Real king is going to make sure that the people are taken care of. He's not he or she is not looking down on the people saying they're beneath me.
That's correct. So the Son of Man said he came to seek and to save those who were lost. He didn't.
He was washing the disciples' feet.
That's
he was washing their feet. He was in the dirt washing their feet.
All right, we don't need a 3-hour interview. This means, brother, you have to come back on the show. And as you know, for those of you who are subscribers to the Entre Musician, although our conversation ends here, Elijah is going to stick around and hang out with us at the Backstage Pass. I'm going to ask him some even deeper questions. So if you're a subscriber, you can hear what's on the other side of the Backstage Pass. Register at theentremusician.com and get backstage and get access to all of the content and resources and opportunities to have greater access to what we're doing for the Entre Musician, with the Entre Musician, to the Entre Musician. We're just loading it up, and that community is building, and we thank you for being a part of it. Before I say goodbye, I want to say thanks to Greg Roton from Armstrong Cable for bringing us on the Neighborhood Channel 100, and thanks to Tay Brown and his team at Veasly for putting the Entre Musician on all Roku channels and TVs everywhere. So if you have a Roku TV, you can watch the Entre Musician thanks to Tay Brown and his team. This is the incomparable Elijah Gilmore, drummer extraordinaire, but a grateful, beautiful spirit as well. My name is Jerry B. We are Entre Musicians, but you know something? So are you. We will see you next time. God bless.
God bless.